up probably my favorite section in the whole book, and that's the second section, talking about tax and inflation. And it pretty kind of opens your eyes. A lot of people will plan right up to retirement and say, this is how much I'm going to need, but they forget that inflation keeps right on going all the way through 25, 30 years of retirement. And so 25 or 30 years out, you may need double, 2 or 3 times as much money according to whatever the inflation rate is. So that section really draws attention to that. So make sure you really pay attention to that. That should be a major part of your planning. But I like that section. Now we're going to be talking about section 3, nest egg sources. We're going to talk about now where all of your money is going to come from during retirement. We kind of divide it up into 3 areas. There's certainly a lot of areas, but we kind of divide it into 3 areas for right now. But before I start, I inserted this slide. This is my own slide. It says, make sure you aggregate all sources. You know, it's kind of like if you go to Vegas and you pull and you go, oh my gosh, I put 25 cents in, won $5,000. You go back and tell everybody how well you did in Vegas. Man, I made money in Vegas. And I said, how long have you been going there? I've been going there for the last 20 years. I said, are you ahead or behind? Oh, you mean over 20 years? Oh, I don't know, probably behind. Yeah, okay. So when you're looking at all of your different investments, just because you have one that may be hitting the number that you need to hit, the 9% or 10, whatever it is, that doesn't mean all of them are. So make sure you put them all together and look at your entire portfolio that you're going to be drawing from and make sure it's all growing at the right pace. And if a lot of your money is coming from Social Security, it won't grow at that pace. So you need to offset that with your own investments. So, and then assign a lead planner. Man, that's really important. I have a person that comes to me and says, I'm using a different broker, but I came to your class, I like it, and I'd really like for you to do some of these alternative investments or something. I said, well, that's okay, but just remember, I had somebody come in to me one time, and they said, I've got a $300,000, I'm going to give this guy 100, this guy 100, this guy 100, and see which one does the best. So he's going to give me 100, and I'm going to go in there and I say, okay, well, I'm competitive. As I told you earlier in the class, I competed Division I, man. I mean, I want to win, and so I know that emerging markets are doing real well right now. So I'm probably going to put all your money in emerging markets so I can win this contest. I'm not sure that's really good for you because the other 2 guys, they may be competitive too. Who knows? And if they are, they're going to try to do the same thing. They're going to put their years. They know the market as well as I do. They're going to put it in emerging markets also. So you're going to have a whole portfolio of nothing but emerging market, and it's not really in your best interest that you do that. So make sure when you go in, it's okay if you have different brokers, I guess. I mean, if that's what you want to do, make sure you have one that sees the whole picture. Someone needs to see the whole picture to make sure you're allocated the way you probably need to be. So when we start talking about where our sources are coming from, we're divided into 3 areas. What the government's done for you, what you've done for yourself through your personal savings and investments, and what your employer has done for you. Okay, so that's kind of the 3 different areas where you're going to probably get your money. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to get this bottom one out of the way first. It's called employer-sponsored plans. That's your defined benefit plan, your defined contribution plan. What's the difference? What is a defined benefit plan?
It's your employer, the money your employer puts.
It's a monthly payment, annual payment that's for your life. It's a pension payment.
Pension. That's
the benefit is defined, not the money into it.
It's a pension plan, basically. That's what a defined. You know what the benefit's going to be. I know I worked with a lot of teachers and TRS story. Anyway, I worked with a lot of teachers, and they say it used to be that you would take your last 3, your best 3, they call it. Usually that's your last 3, but your best 3 years of income. They just changed it to 5. Why did they do that?
So you can pay less.
Yes, because did you make more in the last 3 or the last? You know, so they're going to add 2 lower years in with that. Therefore, the average comes out to a lower number. Sneaky people. And that's kind of what they do. So they take your last 5 years. They're going to take and multiply the number of years you've worked by 2.3. I can remember when it was 2.2 many years ago because everybody in my family is teachers, as I said earlier. And so they made it 2.3. At one point during 08, they considered backing back up to 2.2 again. That would have made all the teachers got not an increase in wages, but a decrease in wages. That would have been really sad. They didn't do it. But that's a factor. And then you take the number of years you worked, and if they have like a deal that says, okay, if it adds up to 80, now they've changed it to 90, I think, but it used to be 80. And say if your number of years you've worked and your age adds up to 80, then you're fully vested, and you'll get 2.3 times the number of years you've worked. That will come up with a percentage of that 5-year average. You don't have to remember this. I'm just saying there is a formula that they use to determine your defined benefit, and that's what you're going to get the rest of your life if you're a teacher. There are no COLA or cost of living adjustments for teachers in Texas. Okay, now, some pension plans have COLA adjustments. I don't know what they are, 2-3% maybe less. Now, what's the difference in that and a defined contribution plan?
The government tells us what our limitations are to put money in. We don't know what it will be worth at the end.
Defined contribution?
Yeah.
It's 401k.
Right.
That's what it's a 403b, 401k, SEP, Simple, any of those programs. Those are 457 million. Those are all defined contribution plans. In other words, what did they just do? Used to be that almost all plans were defined benefit. As Kirk said earlier, about 85-90% of companies out there had a defined benefit plan. Now only about 4 or 5% of them have defined benefit plans. Okay. Most of them have switched to how many of you had a pension plan at work? Okay, one of you. Okay, is it a government plan or is it a corporate plan? And can new employees get into that same pension plan? And the answer, of course, is no most of the time. Okay, they can't get into it. And if you already have one, then okay, we'll let you keep it, but new employees had to go into the defined contribution plan. What does that mean? That means it used to be the companies were responsible for your retirement. They had to fund that contribution plan, that defined benefit plan or that pension. But what happened? Well, interest rates went down really low and people started living longer. Well, that kind of messed up all the calculations. So they were running a little bit short and they had a hard time funding these things and keeping them funded. So they started switching and saying, let's switch the responsibility of your retirement from us to you. Now you, with defined contribution plan, you decide how much you want to put in. We may or may not match it. And you decide what you're going to invest it in. We'll give you some choices of things that we've put on the platform. So now you have to know what to invest in, and you have to know how much you want to put in. You're in control of your retirement now. If your retirement's not good, it's your fault you messed it up. Not them, because they're not responsible anymore. So that's what we've seen. We've seen them shift the responsibility and use them. So this is what we're going to see mostly is defined contribution. That's your 401ks, and most of you have one of those plans. So that's your government-sponsored plans. Now, the Social Security, this is a government plan for you. Most of us, and I used to say this all the time, most of us, I've been teaching this 15 years. Now it's probably not most of us, but most of us were born between 1943 and 1954. Our full retirement age would be 66 for Social Security. If you decide to take it early, at age 62, you would only get 75% of that. Now, those are just snapshots. If you wait till you're 63, or 64, or 65, it'll be a little bit more. In other words, these are just snapshots. It can be something in between. But once you hit 66, it's full retirement age, and you'll get your full retirement. Now, if you were born after 1960, your full retirement age would be 67. So you can just look at the book and see which one yours is, and if you're working with a planner or your accountant or whoever you're working with, they can help you calculate all that. Now, if you decide that you don't really, if you say, well, I don't really need that money right now, I think I'll wait. Well, if you want to wait, for every year you wait, Social Security will give you an extra 8% of what your original retirement. So if your full retirement age was 66, from 66 to 70 is 4 years. It's simple, not compounded. So 4 times 8 is 32, so you would get 132% of what they had originally promised you. So you can wait if you want to. The downside of that is you missed a lot of pretty good sized payments, $2,000 or $3,000 a month for 4 years. You won't ever get that back, but you're going to get more going forward. So if you have longevity in your life, you may want to wait till 70. If you're not really ready to retire, you might want to wait till 70. But You know, that's something you just have to work out with your planner. They'll usually give good advice. Now, there's supposed to be a COLA adjustment to Social Security, but several years, in the last few years, they haven't given us that adjustment. So we don't put that on there, so you could get more than 8, but we don't ever talk about that because it's not a for sure thing. Okay? Now, let's say you do say, well, I don't trust Social Security, I want to retire at age 62. So if he does that, if he decides to keep working, and this is for what year? This is for 22. Every year this changes. Usually goes up. For every $2 you make more than $19,560, they're going to penalize you $1. Okay? You say, well, $1, that's not that much. Well, it is if you're making $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year. That'd be quite a bit. So yeah, that's a huge tax. So you don't really want to do that unless you're really retired. That's I always tell people, I say, wait until full retirement age if at all possible. That way you don't have to worry about this. Now, if you wait until the year that you actually reach full retirement age, then you can make up to $51,960, and for every $3 you make more than that, they're going to penalize you $1. That's a little bit better. But still, if you're making $150,000 a year, that could definitely be a
And
good sign.
that's earned income though, not pension income or.
No, it's earned income. It's work. That's a good point. Thank you. Yeah, that's earned income, money that you made salary as you're working. Okay. If you wait until the actual month that you reach full retirement age, then there's no penalty. You can make $1 million a year and still get your full Social Security benefits. Okay, and I always, when I do this, I always think of this guy I was telling you about that. He was a very high net worth person, made a lot of money. He said, I don't trust Social Security. I don't think it's going to be around. I disagree with him, but that was his feeling. And he says, I want to go ahead and take it at 62. I said, okay. If that's the way you feel about it, we'll go ahead and turn it on at 62. He comes in for his first review about 6 months later. He had a review coming up. He came in, he said, oh, by the way, I started working again. This guy was I said, you started working again? And I was sitting in my mind, I was sitting there thinking, God, he took this Social Security at 62. I said, how much you making? He said, not much, about 80, 90,000 a year, something like that. He was consulting, he wasn't making much, 80 or 90,000 a year. I said, you're going to get penalized. It's going to be a huge tax on that. You should have, that means you should have waited until full retirement age, but you already took it, so it's not a deal. But anyway, so just remember that there's different reasons for people continuing to work after it. And I said, why are you working? You don't need the money. He says, it's kind of bored. Well, there you go. So there's a lot of reasons why people go back to work. Sometimes just because they're just bored and just want to go back to work. Sometimes they need the money. I know all my teacher friends, I grew up with teachers, they all needed the money. 5 or 6 years after retirement, I used to sit in my bedroom and sleep while my parents were talking to other teachers in the living room. They'd all be talking, and a lot of them had gone back to work. And at first I thought, God, they just must love those kids. Then I realized, wait, what do we do to substitute teachers? Yeah, I said, I don't think that was what they went back for. You're a teacher. You go back because you needed the money, not because you just absolutely can't stand to not be in the classroom, so you go substitute teach. I don't think so. That usually happen. But anyway, so you say, well, is that Social Security going to be taxed? And the answer is yes. If you make, and I'm always going to be talking about, when I'm talking on the book has all the different situations, but I'm going to talk about married, filing jointly. Okay, as you can see, it has individual rates, and it has on all the different charts we have, the phase out charts, it always talks about both. But I'm just going to focus on the filing a joint return. Okay, and you can look at the book if you're in a different situation. But if you make more from all sources, more than $44,000 a year, now that's not earned income. That is from all sources, $44,000 a year. If you make more than $44,000 a year, married, filing jointly, up to 85% of your Social Security is going to be taxed. Incidentally, that's a snapshot too. So if you're making 43, 40, 42, 32, or something like that, it starts reducing the tax. Okay. Now, I had a person say, well, Mike, I don't think that's going to be a problem for me because I'm not showing any income at all. And I said, oh, really? He says, yeah, I'm in all tax-free municipal bonds. I said, well, I have to be the bearer of bad news, but they add that in too. They do add tax-free municipal bonds into this calculation. Not only that, But half your social security goes into that. So if you're making 30,000 a year, and social security 15, you're already 15,000 into it. Anyway, just keep that in mind. But there is one thing, that if all your money was in that, you might not show any income. You know what it is? There is one type of investment that if you're in that, it does not show up as part of your income.
Oil and gas?
You know what it is?
I just thought that this might be a joke, but.
Roth. That's amazing. Tax-free municipal goes into it, but Roth IRAs do not. It's only
Income from a Roth IRA.
income. If all your money is in a Roth, if you manage to figure out a way to get all your money in a Roth income, you could be showing less than
I
this.
wonder when they'll add it in.
Yeah.
Huh?
I wonder when they'll add it in.
I don't know, but that's pretty amazing because the Roth, I always said the Roth was a major mistake. They didn't mean for it to be there.
Yeah.
That came in during Clinton's deal, and he was mad at the IRS. He was trying to abolish it and everything. And so he was telling people, I'll give you 3 years to spread your taxes out if you'll just convert to a Roth right now that way, because when you do a conversion, all the money shows up as income in that year. He said, I'll let you spread it over 3 years, reduce the blow if you'll just convert it. All the money came in on his administration from all these sources. And I thought, that son of a gun, he hates IRS. He was trying to abolish it. And remember, that's whenever Forbes and all those people were coming up with all these ideas. Well, what about the flat tax? What about the consumption tax? All these things were coming out back in the mid-'80s, and it didn't ever happen. So all these people that converted, I guess got a good deal, but what it did is it destroyed administrations after that, because all this stuff is actuarially calculated as how much money is going to be coming into the coffers. He squeezed it all into his, and guess what? He's known for balancing the budget. So, and now you have your personal savings. So we'll talk about, on personal savings, mainly I'm going to talk about some of the characteristics of IRAs and Roth IRAs, some of that stuff. I put this slide in a long time ago, probably could take it out now. But I had somebody come into my office one day and they said, Mike, I've got some money here and I want to invest it. Would I be better off putting it into an IRA or a mutual fund? And I said, well.
Yeah, you shouldn't take it out, because I still get that.
Huh?
We still
We still get that.
Yeah, we still get that.
Oh, yeah.
You still get those questions?
Oh, yeah.
Say, should
And I said,
Yeah.
well,
what do we make?
I said, if it's the same
Yeah.
mutual fund, it's going to be the same thing. One's tax deferred, you know. But I mean, it's going to be the same. You could have the very same investment in either one. They said, oh, well, how much does an IRA get? And I said, well, I don't know. What are you going to invest it in?
Yeah.
Well, an IRA. I said, well, wait a minute. The IRA is not an investment. It's just the tax shelter, the tax treatment of the investment. And same goes for 401ks, 403s, all that stuff. None of those are investments. They're just the tax treatment of the investment based on the IRS code, whatever it says. The traditional IRA. Yeah, there's some phase-out stuff right here. I'm not going to really go into this too much, but this is for 2022. And once again, we're talking about married, filing jointly. That's all I'm going to show. If you're married, filing jointly, you make over $129,000 a year, you may not be able to deduct your IRA contribution. If you make less than $109,000 a year, you can deduct your IRA contribution. If you're anywhere in between, it'll be prorated. So if you're right in the middle, you could deduct half of it, and the other half you'd have to put somewhere else or put into a non-deductible IRA. So just keep that in mind. But two things have to happen before you cannot deduct it. One is if you make too much money, over 129, and not or, you have an employer-sponsored plan. Now, I've had a lot of people come in and they didn't have an employer-sponsored plan and they made too much money. And they said, well, I never could put money in the last 5 years. I couldn't put money in my IRA. And I said, why is that? And they said, well, I made too much money. And I said, I thought you said you didn't have any kind of you didn't have a 401k or anything. No, we don't have anything. We're just on our own. I said, well, you could have deducted it then. And he argued with me until we read the code. So make sure you make that point. That I always try to make that point. You know, both conditions have to be met. If you don't have a plan at work, it doesn't matter what, you get a full deduction, unless your spouse is covered. If you're not covered, but your spouse is covered, then you can make up to $214,000 before you can't deduct it. If you make less than $204,000, you can still deduct it. If neither one of you have a plan at work, you got a full deduction, no matter how, you make $2 million a year and you still get a full deduction on your IRA contributions. But just know that I'm not gonna get into a lot of detail, but there's so many different combinations, I'm not gonna go through all of them, whether you're single or married or whatever. But just make sure that you work with your accountant tax preparer, and they know they know everything about your situation, whether you have a plan at work or don't have a plan at work, and how much you make and all that, to determine whether you can deduct or not deduct. And I will make I'll make a suggestion here. If you happen to have some money that's in a deductible IRA, which most people will, and then you also have some, you decide to put some in an IRA anyway, even though you cannot deduct it and it's non-deductible, in your file cabinet, when the statements come in, make sure you have, and I always just take the last 4 digits of the account number, and I make sure that the non-deductible goes into a different account from the deductible. I don't commingle them. You can. But at the end, when you get ready to take it out, the IRS, if they can't figure it out, it's all going to be taxable. Okay? Because they're not going to mess with it. So make sure you keep your non-deductible and your deductible IRA in 2 different accounts. Circle that, and when those things come in, keep them separate so that you don't have to pay taxes again on the part that you already pay taxes on. You'll have to pay on the growth, but not on what you put in. That's just a suggestion. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to show you one thing here, and I think some of you may or may not know this. Now, let's say that I had 3 IRA accounts. This one is A, B, and C. They're with different companies. I had one with one broker, another broker, another broker. In fact, in one, I may have 6 or 8 of these things. I got 3. One's with a mutual fund, one's with a REIT, one's with, all these different, you got all these different accounts. And let's say that it's time for you, you've turned 73 now, and it's time for you to do your to start taking RMDs. When you do that, the custodian's going to send you a note telling you how much you need to take out. This custodian says you need to take $500 out. And the way they will determine that is on December 31st of the year before you turn 73. On December 31st of 72, whatever your account value is, that'll be your RMD for 73 based on about 3.67 or somewhere in that ballpark. It's going to be something they send you. The custodians usually keep up with all that and send you a notice saying you need to take this much out of your RMD for this year, for this account will be this. And if you got 10 different accounts, you're going to get 10 different numbers. Just say you had 3. These 2 said $500, but this one said $1,000 because you had twice as much money in it. And that's the way it came out. You said, golly, I hate this account. I was getting ready to put it with one of these other ones anyway, but this one's really cool because it has these benefits that if you don't take any money out of it, they'll give you extra benefit money for what you're going to draw income from. Like that, So I wish I didn't have to touch this one. So if I do take the RMD out here, is that going to mess up that deal so they don't keep bumping me up 6 or 7%? I said, yeah, it'll mess you up. So don't take it out of this one, take it out of that one. Well, they sent me a deal saying I had to take it out of here. No, you don't. The IRS only sees, they see one number, 2,000. That's all they see. They don't see all those other numbers. These just go into this coffer and it ends up being 2,000. You say pay 2,000. You say I have 3 IRAs. The IRS says you have 1 IRA. You only have 1 IRA. This is it. And you have to take 2,000 out of it. They don't care where you take it from, as long as you get 2,000 out of your IRA singular, which that's all they say. Okay. So that means that you can say, okay, well, let's leave this one alone. Let it keep growing. And let's go ahead and take it all out of this one. I hate this one anyway. And we'll let that one grow too, so we'll just do it that way. And when this one depletes, I'll start taking it out of here, but I'll let this one just keep growing. I got a lot of people doing that. So anyway, that way you're staying in control and staying kind of flexible. All that control and flexibility just kind of feeds right into that. The only other thing I'll say about IRAs right quick is that when it's time to take your RMD, let's say that you turn 73 in 2000. And then you got 2001 and 2002 and 2003 here. So you turn 73 in 2000, they're going to calculate what you take out. So they say you got to take money out so your first RMD comes out here. Your second RMD comes out here, and your third comes out here. And this is on December 31st, December 31, and December, it has to be out on December 31st. You can take it out on the last day or all during the month, or however you want to do it. Anyway, so you look at that and you say, oh, okay, I see how it works. Well, oh my gosh, my birthday fell at a time, it used to be in a half, you know, the 70, that's why I messed it all up. But anyway, so my birthday fell on a date, and so during 2000, but I didn't react quick enough, and it rolled over, and so it said, well, that's okay, you can wait if you want to till you can take this first one in April the 1st of the following year if you want to. That's an option. But you can, that's only one option, only one time. You can only do that once. In other words, every year after that, it's going to be on December 31st. So what does that mean? That means in 2002, you would need to take out 2. And I only mention that because I had a CPA working with one of my clients, and the person came to me, and they'd already been, it used to be 70 and a half, and they'd already been 70 and a half for about 2 years. And I was looking in their files, and I said, well, I see where you took your RMD out, your first one, but I didn't see where you took the second one out that same, and the next year I didn't see where you took out the other one. And they said, you deferred it to April the 1st, but you only took one out that year. And they said, well, I only have to take out one each year. I said, well, no, when you deferred it, you put it into this year, you're going to take out both. And she said, well, something my CPA told me. I said, do you mind if I call them? Once again, we're going to talk, those three people got to talk to each other. So I said, do you mind calling? She said, no, she got them on the phone. I said, listen, I'm sitting here with so-and-so here, and I see where she took out her RMD in this particular year, but I didn't see where she took out the second one for that year. That was one for the year prior. And she said, we only have to take out one a year. And I said, oh my gosh. What went through my mind is, did I have this wrong?
Yeah, sure.
This is CPA, you know. And I said, would you do me a favor? Would you go back and check to make sure that's the right rule on that? And then call me right back. She said, sure. About 10 minutes later, she calls me back and she says, oh my gosh. She said, I screwed up. I said, the reason that was really significant is because you know what the penalty is?
50%.
50%.
Of the
The
amount
biggest
you
one of
didn't
the code, huh?
take. Of the amount you didn't take.
Yeah.
That's right.
And if they catch you 2 or 3 years later, it can be a disaster, you know, because penalties and interest on top of that. So anyway, and the lady ended up not becoming a client. I think it embarrassed her, and she never did come back. But I always kind of wondered what happened in that situation. But now there's a form you can actually fill out and sign. It's a standard form now that says, I meant to take this out and I didn't. You turn it in with your deal. Doesn't matter if you waited a year. You can get it resolved now. We've already had to do that twice with different people. So just recently. But anyway, I just want to throw that in. Go ahead to the next one. The Roth IRA, if you'll notice, this 214 is the same as that other 214. If you make more than 214 married, filing jointly, you cannot put money into a Roth. If you make less than 204 married, filing jointly, you can fund a Roth. And if it's in between, you can fund half of it into a Roth, the rest of it have to go into a traditional or something. But here's the deal. They're saying if you make too much money, you cannot put your money into a Roth. Well, that's really interesting. Let me just say this. When the IRS says you cannot do something, that means it was probably a really good idea. Okay? And I say that because when they say you cannot do it, that means that they don't want you to do it because it's better for you than it is for them. The Roth, I always felt like was probably a mistake, and for that reason I was saying earlier, there was a lot of rumor that they were going to try to abolish the IRS and go to a flat tax or a consumption tax or something, and it never did happen. But I think the Roth was set up to take advantage of that. But then what would happen is you'd say, okay, I'm going to put my money into a Roth, and then I've been incentivized I'm going to put my money traditionally, I've been incentivized to change it over to a Roth. So now you pay the taxes, and then the next year they do away with it. And what do you pay taxes on a Roth? You pay whatever on a Roth, it's whatever the ordinary, on a regular IRA, it's whatever the ordinary income tax is at that time. Well, now it's 0. So you don't have to, so now the ordinary income taxes, the tax on that is going to be 0. I said, and you paid the taxes on it. If you just waited, you wouldn't have had to pay the taxes. And so, anyway, it's one of those things where I think the Roth was a mistake because it has too many good features. Most in the investment industry up until 1980, end of 85, the Tax Reform Code of 86. You're familiar with that? Okay, that's when up until then you could take. In fact, my father-in-law was a very successful person, and he actually came up with an annuity that said you put $10 million into this annuity, and that's money you've already paid taxes on and everything, and then it sits there and it grows, and during your retirement, just take the principal. Okay? You'll never have to pay taxes because you've already paid taxes on that. That would be a first in, first out. Okay? Finally, in late 85, and it was called the Tax Reform Act of 86, they said, we're tired of this. We've got too many wealthy people. They're not paying us any taxes because they're going to pass it on or all this kind of stuff. But they said, that's the time value of money. We're getting killed on this, so we're going to change the rules. On your annuities, it has to be last in, first out. So if you have $1 of growth on this thing, you got to be taxed on that. That has to come out before you take any of the principal out. So all annuities became last in, first out, LIFO. They changed it to LIFO. It went from FIFO to LIFO, first in, first out. First thing in was this. If you took this out first, you didn't pay taxes because you already paid taxes on it. Well, guess what? The Roth is the one thing left that's FIFO, that's first in, first out. And not only is it first in, first out, even if you try to pay taxes, they'd send it back to you. They won't let you take it in, last in, first out. Amazing. That's in the code, that's the way it's set up. That's not characteristic of the IRS. They want money. But they're saying, no, don't give us any money. It's going to have to, But now, if you have a Roth IRA, if you're 35 years old and you've already put, for 10 years, you've been putting money in, you got a lot of money in there, and you say, oh, I need to buy a new car or I need to put money down on a house, you can take out everything you put in with no penalty. Now, the investment has a penalty. That's investment, not the IRS. IRS imposes no penalty on taking that amount of money out early, unlike what they do if it's a regular IRA, which is if it's before 59 and a half, they're going to tax you, okay? So they're saying you can take your principal out that you put in anytime you want to. Now, if you take the growth out, you're going to be penalized unless you're 59 and a half and you've had it in force for 5 years. Y'all are familiar with the 5-year deal? Okay. Has to be in force for 5 years. So if both of those conditions are met, you can take any of it out you want to with no taxes. But up until then, you can take out the principal anytime you want to, no penalty. So that makes it, a little bit of flexibility, a little control there. That's all that's there. So, and here's kind of the way that works. I've got everything is threes here. I don't know, but anyway, so I've got 3 different Roth IRAs. This one I started in 2000. This one I started in 2010, and this one I started in 2023, just a few days ago. Okay, so when does the 5 years start on this one?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know what you're getting at here.
When does it start at? It's a trick question.
Yeah.
I'm going to mess you up.
Well, 2000.
That's my job.
You're treating it all as one.
It is one. It's just like the other one. The IRS only sees one.
Right.
You started it in 2000. You can open this one today, and a week later, take it all out with no penalty, if you're over 59 and a half.
Right.
Now, but you haven't had it for 5 years, it doesn't matter, you did have it, you've had it
Yeah.
actually for 23 years. Wow, that's a long time. Anyway, you've had it for 23 years. God, I'm getting old. Anyway, so, just remember, that's some good planning information right there. You know, you can set up more Roth IRAs if you want to. The only exception is what? You know what the exception is to the 5-year rule?
Whatever.
Conversion.
Okay.
If you convert on the converted amount, the 5 years starts all over again. It won't start over if you open up new accounts, but if you convert an IRA to a Roth IRA, it starts the 5 years all over for that account.
But you didn't actually do that, right? Because you couldn't have opened a Roth. could you?
What, in 2000?
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, I just made these numbers
I know,
up.
just made it up.
Change it.
We can't have Roths. so-
Anyway, so, yeah. But anyway, but I should check that out.
I didn't realize for the Roths, I thought each one was, I knew about traditional being able to pull out your RMD out of just one IRA.
Both of them, they
But
see.
the Roth, I did not think was the same.
I know,
didn't
that's,
that.
I've had actual CPAs in the class that didn't realize that. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, see, I try to get people to open up the Roths because even, you know,
The underlying
rolling a
theme
Roth
of the whole thing.
part of a 401K out, you know, how it starts the 5-year
Mhm.
over. Does that,
Okay, let's talk about that. I usually don't bring this up because the class goes too long when I do it.
Yeah.
But y'all gonna be here all night, so we'll keep going. Anyway, so, on the 401K,
mhm.
if you decide to put that in, you want it to be a Roth?
Well, if they have inside of their 401K, a Roth option.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And when they roll it out, it starts a new 5-year period.
Not necessarily.
That's what I was wondering, is like,
If you
how do
roll
we get
it-
around that?
Okay. Let's say that I started my own personal Roth
Right.
in 2010.
See, that's why I have them open up earlier.
So you're saying you could qualify
It
to
takes
open
on
a
the
Roth.
characteristic of the one you're
The
rolling it
original.
into. If you've got one that's already been around 5 years, you can start
Okay.
immediately taking the money.
That's what I thought,
Yes.
I just wanted to
If
make
you
sure.
did- If you did not have one, you
Uh-huh.
got 5 years to
Yeah.
take it, right, exactly.
That's what I'm trying to get.
It takes
people
on the
just
character.
Put this much into a Roth, I don't care. Just
Yes,
open
get a
it.
Roth started.
Start
In
the
fact, I
clock.
recommend everybody comes in here, start a Roth for your kids.
Mhm.
Get that 5, get all that stuff out of the way. My son,
There we go. You could gift your child the money to put into the Roth, but they have to have earned income to do a Roth contribution.
okay, that's funny.
I think they.
We let,
Can I pay my kid?
yes, you can.
Yes, yes, you
Pay the
can.
kid.
Yes, you can. And the beautiful thing about that is, if you're only gonna be giving them, what is a Roth contribution now, 5 or 6,000, huh?
I think it's 6,500.
6500.
6,500. To under 50,
Yeah.
to a kid. We let them do that for infants.
Mhm.
You said, well, how can they have income? Oh, the little bassinet they have, you know, that little bassinet that you carry them around in? You sit by the door and use it as a doorstop, you can pay them for that. They're not ever gonna check it anyway, because they fall way under the requirement to file any kind of a tax return. They're completely under the radar forever, you know, for a long time. So it never really comes up.
Yeah.
Now-
So we could hire a payroll company to run our kids
Mhm.
and then make a Roth account for them.
Yeah, here's the
Pay Social
thing.
Security tax.
I would check with my accountant or CPA or whoever it is, whoever you're using for that, maybe even a tax attorney, to say, this is what we're planning on doing, you see anything wrong with it?
Yeah.
Now, they may be real conservative and say, nah, that's kind of, you know, I say, how would we get caught then?
Yeah.
This is what we're teaching in class. There's ways to rip them off. Okay. We've done that. I've got a nurse practitioner who, when she was about 30 years old, she started pouring money in. She had a son and she started pouring money. She was a single parent. And right now, for about 6 or 8, she's 40-something now, but anyway, for years, she was putting money into this Roth every year for her young child. And we calculated, and she'd ever put another dime into it, he'd be worth about $20 million when it turns 65. So if you just grow the nominal 6 or 7, 8% rate. Anyway, it was pretty interesting. Yeah, the Roth is something that I would recommend getting started. Now, people say, can I start giving money to my child and get it into a Roth? And since they don't have earned income, I said, well, give them earned, and then keep a file. Especially if they're 10 years old or something, say, yeah, they mowed the yard. We mow the yard every year. I said, if you mow the yard every year, I'll give you $6,000 a year or something, whatever it is, and keep a file. So if you ever, for some reason, they ever did this, well, here's the file right here. This is where I paid him. But he didn't make enough money to file tax returns, so there was never any.
Yeah, so we could pay him just personally. Your job is to keep the room clean, $6,500 a year.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with
I would say
that.
my kids won't do it, but.
My only request is that if for some reason down the road this doesn't work out, if y'all would come and visit me and yeah, right.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, let's see what it is. These are some of the things here. There's no RMD on it, you know, because there's no tax. Now, if an inherited RMD does have an RMD, inherited Roth does have an RMD. I've never been able to figure out why. They just want to get the money back in circulation, I guess. But there's no tax on it, because you can pass it on tax-free. You can still contribute after, well, this says 72, we can say 73 now, but you can continue to contribute to it. Whereas you cannot contribute to an IRA. You can contribute to a 401k, but not an IRA, because you're supposed to be taking money out. Since you don't have to take money out of the Roth, that you can continue to contribute if you have earned income. Okay, unlike, conversion, I kind of talked about that. Why convert if you anticipate higher taxes during the withdrawal period, or if you want to leave income tax-free to your heirs. Now, I'm just going to say right up front, I am not a big fan of conversion. Okay, because we don't really know what's going to happen. The taxes in the future, we're betting on uncertainties in the future when we convert. And I'm not a big, because if it's 25, if you're in the 25% tax bracket today, and you convert, and when you start to take it out, you're still in the 25% tax bracket, it's a wash. In other words, you hadn't gained a thing. You'll say, well, because you started out, if you had 100,000, and you convert, now you only got 75, because you had to pay taxes. When you get to the end, yeah, you're not going to pay taxes coming out, you will on this, but you'll get exactly the same dollar amount. It's a complete wash if it's in the same investment. So anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say.